All right, how's it going, guys? Welcome back to episode 10 of the MSS is the Bin Room.
Episode
Episode 10, not too
10.
bad. We're
God
halfway through
damn.
season one. It's going to be
Sheesh.
seasons of 21 episodes, only because 90% of the top 90% that make or do podcasts don't make it to episode 21. So we thought it'd be fun to do it in seasons of 21, So
21 turning 21. Let's go.
does not matter at all.
Okay. I'm just saying.
Anyway, we're halfway through the season, which is a nice milestone.
It's
So
sick.
not too bad,
Let's
not too
go.
bad. Today we're going to be talking about some cool things. We were talking a little bit in the last episode about the idea of going the hard way and the idea of the value of going the hard way, but that's not always like an easy thing to understand what that actually means, and even just getting through that can be pretty difficult. So I, for myself, had adopted this kind of mindset, this mentality that I wanted to be like a Spartan, right? Like the elite legendary warriors that like no fear, no surrender, no defeat, none of that kind of stuff, and that would just go through the hardest battles and would win, right? Everybody knows the story of like the Leonidas in the 300
Mm.
who like fought
Yeah.
Xerxes and like whatever and all that kind of stuff. But I broke it down into a couple of principles like that I adopted for myself to be like, okay, this is how I defined what it looked like to be a Spartan in my eyes, right? So I want to go through a couple of those principles today and like why they have value and what they've meant for me and like our own kind of like journey as well. So the first one is it'll pass, right? And what that essentially means is that no matter whether you're going through good stuff, no matter whether it's bad or if it's like awful, that everything is temporary. That life ends at some stage. You know what I mean? That like no matter what you're going through, it's seasons, right? Life is gonna have ups and downs. It's gonna have the good and the bad. Like, is life always good?
No.
Is life always bad?
No.
There's moments where it's like it's going to change, which is why you have to be able to adapt and evolve, as those waves come.
Yeah.
Because if you can't like handle the ups and downs, like you're just going to be thrown and shaken by every
I
wave that
know for
comes.
me, like, I hold on to the bad more than the good. I feel like
That's
it's like
yeah,
that's normal, I
that's a
guess,
problem
in a
with a lot
sense.
of people as well. I'd be the
Yeah.
same, like like just focusing so much on the negative. Like
Yeah.
even the last few weeks, we've been in a
Yeah.
season of like downtimes. Like we've been like on a kind of a negative kind of like side in the last few weeks, and like it's partially because of our mindset and how we've kind of seen it as well, but
Yeah.
like partially because a lot has been
Or like,
happening in the last few
yeah.
weeks, and it's been a tough season for us. So I kind of think one of the things that'll get you through some of those tough seasons is the idea of knowing that it's only for a time, that it'll
It's
pass.
temporary.
Yeah,
Yeah.
it has to stop eventually. You know what I
Yeah.
mean? And like a big part of how you get to the next stage is having the right mindset to be like, okay, I'm not just gonna like let myself end here. Like if you're going through hell, why stop there? Like that idea, like
Yeah.
keep going, keep moving forward, and eventually you can get through to the next level, to the next season. Like there's always another opportunity, there's always another door to go through, right? So that's number one, it'll pass. The second one is one that I so this is something I learned working in retail, right? And when I was working in retail, like a lot of the kind of clientele that we were dealing with were older people, and unfortunately, we were in a shop where the prices were quite high. Like it was, we're in an economic time right now where like crazy inflation rates,
Oh,
very expensive and stuff. But
bad.
in our position, that we had been like working in the same area for years, so like we knew a lot of the demographic there. We knew a lot of like the older people, and like
Mm.
we had created a connection and bonds with these people.
Yeah.
Like like you have your regulars
Like
who are
you see
just
them every day. Like, come on now.
like especially for older people, guys, for anyone who works in retail, right? Understand that for like a lot of it, that time where old people go to the shop, like that's going to be like one of their highlights of their day. Like it's going to be one of the biggest chances they have for social interactions. So if you're working behind a till or you're working in hospitality somehow or another, I know you don't get paid for it, but if you can find it in yourself to try to make the most of that experience for somebody else, talk a little bit to these people, give them a chance to kind of share their stories, to talk a
Yeah.
little bit, and just kind of give them a chance to like live a little bit too. Like you don't want people to feel like they've gotten to a certain stage and now we're just going to write them off in society, like
Yeah.
they don't matter
Yeah.
anymore. Like these are people who
That's
have
horrible.
lived through
Like,
so like
yeah.
it's almost like sentence people to death long before they're ever dead. Like like, oh, you've gotten to this age, I want to hear from you, I don't want to listen
Yeah.
to you. Like all people like have so much wisdom to share, but at the same
Facts.
time they have experience and they have stories and they have value as well. So like if you work in retail, if you work in hospitality, try to go a little bit above and beyond to be able to say, look, these people like they need that like social interaction. Like we all need that togetherness. We all need that community. And for a lot of these people, like at a certain age, like a lot of your friends and family are going to be gone. They're going to have passed on or whatever. So
Mm.
like you're not going to have as many people looking out for you. So as a stranger, if you can like find it in you to have a little bit of kindness and compassion to say, look, like I might not know you as well, but I'm going to talk to you. I'm going to share stories with you. I'm going to mess or whatever. Like when it was us, like in the shop, we created like such great bonds that we would go
Yeah.
to people's houses for tea and coffee, like
Oh
just
my
to check
god.
up on people, or
Yeah.
like people would know us by name. You know what their cigarettes are. You know their grandkids. Like you make people feel like they're still plugged into
Yeah.
society, and that's such a big thing, right? But
Because they appreciate it so much more too.
they
Like they're
will.
so grateful for it.
Older
Like you
people
see the
can be
smile on their
difficult, but
faces, and it's just like,
the ones who are kind, the ones who are nice, the ones who
yeah.
appreciate it and reciprocate it back,
Yeah.
like it makes it so well worth it.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? Like, and this is kind of like the idea that I came to. So I was working one day and there was an older man. He's very nice, and he came in and he had like a big basket of shopping, whatever. And the total came to like I think it might have been like 60 something euro, and it
Yeah.
wasn't like a whole lot, right?
Yeah.
But it was obviously more than this man had, because when I said the total to him after ringing it all up, he kind of started looking at me like, oh, I'll take this out and I'll take this out, or I'll remove these things.
Yeah.
And it's like, I'm gonna be honest, like I'm not telling the story to kind of like say anything good about me, but I wasn't the kind of person that was like okay with that. It's like the idea of you don't make an old man choose between his milk and his strawberries. That like at that stage, like there are more important things than money. And yes, it's not your job to go paying for people's groceries, and yes, you're not like paid to do that. And I
Yeah.
never even told my manager or anything like that. I never even knew that I did it, but it was the idea that a Spartan does not make an old man choose between his milk and his strawberries. The idea that if you can take a hit that somebody else can't necessarily take it. Not
Yeah.
because they deserve it, not because they have the right or the entitlement to it, but because with strength comes responsibility. If you have the extra, like I think I paid like 20 euro to like cover the difference in the shopping, right?
I remember that I was working with you that day.
If you
Like
have it, give it.
I was on tails with you.
You know what I mean? Like it's the idea, like, and you know what was so nice? This is what really broke me afterwards, is that as he was walking away, he turned back to me. He said something like, "Oh, like you're my hero," and it was something really small. Like he just kind of like was trying to be nice to me, but I
Yeah.
swear in that moment,
Yeah.
like it was exactly what I was fighting for. It was exactly why I did it, because it's like
Mm.
you know. Like the idea of like a hero is someone who meddles in like affairs that they have no business meddling in. It's the idea of like
Yeah. Yeah.
they stop something from happening that they just because they can,
Yeah.
not because they should, not because like that person deserves it, but with that strength like comes the responsibility to use it. You know what I mean? Like, and what's 20 euro out of your back pocket?
Come
If
on.
an old man can go home and like feed himself for that
Yeah.
week, and like
Exactly.
he can get his cat food, he can get his bits and pieces.
Yeah.
Like at some stage, guys, you have to understand that like the game is more about compassion than it is competition. Like you can spend your whole life trying to beat other people and trying to get more likes, and you can try to get more of this and look better and be flashier and all this kind of stuff. But at a certain stage, you have to understand that like there is more valuable things than like beating everybody else. That if you can use that strength to lift other people up, I swear, guys, it pays dividends. And like I will never forget that moment for as long as I live, when he turned back to me and said that to me. You know what I mean? To be able to say like you made that impact for somebody. And that was like one of the things that helped me get through like the hard times, is the idea
Yeah.
of you do it for people bigger than yourself.
Because he probably made his week, or his entire
I
month.
tell you what, it
Like,
made my week. It made
yeah,
my week
yeah,
when he
facts.
said it back to me, when he said
Yeah,
to me like, "Oh, I appreciate that."
yeah,
And you know what? You're not always gonna get that either. Like there were a lot of times when like we would do little bits and pieces, like you'd give someone a free bag when you knew they might have been struggling, or
yeah,
like you might have not scanned one or two
yeah,
items when you thought that they couldn't afford. Like
yeah,
there are bits and pieces. Sometimes not you're not gonna get a thank you. You're not gonna get like a big warm welcome, but like you can't do it for that reward. You
yeah.
do it
No,
because it matters, because it's important, because it's valuable, because they need it.
that's
Because
why I did it. I just look at a certain person and be like this is gonna cost a fortune. Like I just can't do that to you.
you just have to have
I
compassion for some people
couldn't. Yeah,
sometimes. Sometimes it means like you pay the difference and you have to put yourself in there. But you
yeah,
know what? So be it. So be it. So that's principle number two, guys. The idea that a Spartan doesn't make an old man choose between his milk and his strawberries. That if you can take the hit, you take the hit. Don't let somebody else who's weaker, who can't take that hit, take it for them. You know what I mean? Like do that kind of way. Principle number two, or number
three.
three, sorry. There is no surrender or defeat, and this is actually like a Spartan like principle and idea that comes from the Spartan themselves. There is no surrender. There is no defeat. The idea that you don't quit, you don't give up, and you don't stop until you've won, or that you keep going until like you've got to where you're trying to go, or you've accomplished what you're trying to accomplish. The idea that like the game isn't over until it's over.
Hmm.
And like for us, sometimes you can like adopt a losing mindset when you see that the game isn't going the way you want to. Like for us,
Yeah.
even we could say, "Oh, we have to go back to 9 to 5s now and it didn't work. Like we should just give up on the podcast, give up on MSS. Like it doesn't matter."
No, we'll make the time for it.
Exactly. Like the idea is you're staying in the game.
Yeah.
Like you do what you have to do to evolve, to be able to stay in the game,
Yeah.
to be able to continue to play. And now we've bought ourselves more time. And
Yeah.
with that, like 9 to 5, although it's not ideal, it gives us the chance to continue to be able to say our bills will get paid. We'll still be able to like wake up tomorrow and we can start filming again. Like that kind of idea, you know? So the third principle is there is no surrender, there is no defeat. You just keep going until you can't anymore. And even then, keep going, you know? Principle number four, the climb. Yeah, so this is one that I really value, is the idea that the value is in the journey. That you start at the bottom and you work your way to the top, right? It doesn't really matter if you're at the top of the mountain if you only started like a little bit like lower
Hmm.
than that.
Yeah.
But if you start at the very bottom, like one thing I always found for myself is that strength isn't defined by how high you can go, but how far you can climb back from. You
Hmm.
know, how deep can you like climb from, as opposed to how high can you get? Because
Yeah.
yeah, it's impressive for someone to like get all the way to the top of the mountain, but if they had to climb from like the depths of the earth to get there, like to go through some really hard times, like I know myself that like it's not always pretty. That you're gonna
No.
there's gonna be some really hard times that like
For
you're gonna
sure.
face something that you didn't expect to face, or someone might pass away, or you might be diagnosed with something, or you might go through something. And I know my own experience that like they don't come when you want them to come.
Mm.
Those things like aren't gonna like they don't care how you feel. They don't care
Yeah.
what kind of situation you're in, and they're gonna come, you know. And sometimes you're gonna get knocked back down the mountain, and it's like the only options you have are to stay there or to get back up and start climbing again.
True. Yeah.
And like that's the value in the climb is the idea that you keep going. And like, you know, the more times you get knocked back down, the better you know the route, the better you know like how to
Yeah.
get back up. I mean,
Yeah.
at this stage now, like this is like our my third like tour of doing like a retail experience, whatever, right?
Yeah.
I know exactly what I'm doing this stage. Like I might be going into a new job, but it's a job that I have done 1,000 times before. It's things that I won't need to be trained in as much. It's stuff like you're continuing with experience,
It's
not
like
just from the start.
like majority of the stuff back of your hand. The only thing you don't know is how that shop operates until you learn
Exactly.
it.
And then you adapt to their systems and their ways,
Exactly.
but you bring your own like kind of personal
Yeah.
like way of doing this as well, and you like fit in with the system that kind of way. But the idea of the climb is like the most important. Like the journey and the destination is great, but you know the person who loves to walk is gonna go further than the person who loves the destination. You know, like you're gonna
Mm.
go further if you actually enjoy the journey, and like the journey is where the value is too. So if you're so focused on where you're trying to go, you're gonna miss out on the entire like trip that it took to get there. All the
Yeah.
beautiful sights you're gonna see on the
Yeah.
way, all the fun memories you're gonna make, and all the kind of
Yeah.
enjoyment of it. Like life is a journey; it's not a destination. In case you forgot, we all die at the end. No
Yeah.
matter how
Yeah.
much money you make, no matter what you achieve, no matter what job you get, no matter what you like acquire for yourself, none of it's coming with you.
You just gotta stop for a minute and enjoy the view,
Exactly. That's all it is. Like it's
enjoy
a
the
journey.
moments. Yeah.
That's all you get. Moments. Like your whole life. Like all the memories and experiences you have. You can't have any of it right now. All we have is this exact moment right now.
Yeah.
And you know what? You're not guaranteed tomorrow. You're not guaranteed the next 5 minutes. Like you could drop it at any moment. So like
Facts.
if you're so focused on where you're trying to go and like you don't make it there, like what was it all for? But if you actually care about the idea of this is the journey, this is what I'm going through, this is what the value of it was, you'll go a hell of a lot farther than you ever thought you could have, you know?
It's growth too.
It's growth, man. Growth over what's the expression? It's like growth over goals. I think that's what it is. But like growth
Oh
is the more
yeah,
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 like you're better off to like, you know, go for growth than you are for
yeah.
goals. And like with growth, you set no limit for yourself. Like if you set a
True.
goal, like that's the definitive endpoint. But if you have growth, it's like, well
You're
damn,
gonna
let's see
keep
how
on
far we can
growing.
go.
Like
You know what I mean?
yeah,
Let's see how
facts.
far we can go with it. But yeah, that's point number four. So the climb. So the idea of starting from the bottom and then working your way to the top. And then the fifth and last principle is the only thing worth conquering is yourself. So this is kind of like ties into the last point a little bit, but that like the only goal or the only person you should be competing with, the only thing you should be trying to better is yourself. That like, yes, you can try to get a great career, and yes, you can try to do all these things and like compare yourself to everybody else, but the real goal is to be better than you were yesterday.
True.
The real goal is to understand where you're starting and what you're going through, and to try to again like get that journey, get that
Mm.
growth. Try to
Yeah.
start from where you started and get to how far ever you can go. You know that like the only thing worth like conquering in this life is yourself. That you can't compare with other people. You can't like choose your you can't compare your chapter 3 to somebody else's chapter 50.
True.
Like they're on a different journey, they're on different circumstances, they have different like a different life, you know what I mean? If you're so focused on comparing yourself to everybody else, you'll miss the value in your own journey. You'll miss the value in what you're doing and like your story and your growth. And you know, every person is different. And each person has something unique to contribute. Each person has something special that they actually bring to the world. And unless you're like focused on conquering yourself, you might never get that out of yourself.
Yeah.
You might never find out what it is that you actually have to contribute to the world if you don't start putting yourself out there, putting yourself in situations to grow, trying to test the limits, stretching yourself. And growth is painful. In case anyone didn't realize that, growth and like progress, they're not pretty. Like you're gonna have to break yourself down, rebuild yourself up. Like I mean, even the idea of building diamonds, you need pressure and heat. Pressure sucks and heat is hot. Like I'll tell you that right now. Like to get diamonds, like they don't just go through like the salon and like,
Diamond in the rough.
oh, it is tough, man, to become a diamond and like to be able to do that. But it's like the idea of, you know, taking it, the idea of like building on those things. And that like growth is very
Yeah.
uncomfortable. Like you're gonna get growing pains, you're gonna be stretched out, you're gonna feel like, you know,
But yeah, it's like you shouldn't live life too comfortable.
you shouldn't be too comfortable at all.
Yeah.
Like comfort zones are where you die. Like when you stop growing, when you stop progressing, when
Yeah.
you like kind of get stuck in a situation. And this is like another thing that we realize is that the problem, like often you find with 9 to 5s, is that people don't enjoy them, right? Like you don't like them for the most part. So
No.
you end up using all the money you get from that to fund escapes from that, whether it be in like you say partying or drugs or video games or any other kind of escape that you might find where you're like not confronting reality or where you're just kind of moving into a different kind of space. Like you kind of get trapped in this cycle where like you're in that job to fund whatever, and then you're only doing those things to be able to like escape what you're doing. Like you know what I mean? Like
Yeah.
you become
Yeah.
trapped in this cycle, which is
Yeah.
why like if you can go to 9 to 5, be uncomfortable, and like come home and not spend all your money on this, not spend all your money on new games, not spend your money all on smoke and all these kind of
Mm.
different stuff that you're
Yeah.
doing, right? Where if you can spend that like in a way that's gonna you're still gonna be uncomfortable, that you can invest it and keep growing and
True.
keep going and stuff.
Yeah.
Like if you get trapped in that cycle, like you're just going to work to fund these, and you're only doing these to get like be okay going to work, and like you're gonna go
So is
back
that
and
the end
back,
all be all of your life?
and you're gonna be at the end like regretting it, being like, oh damn, I wasted my chance. You know what I mean? So like if you're too comfortable, that's probably a bad sign about what you're doing, because
Yeah.
like the most rewarding things are scary. Like going into a
True.
new setting,
Yeah.
trying out a new thing, going to like whatever, like if you already know it like perfectly in and out, then why are you doing it? You know what I mean? It's the idea like you don't learn something if you're the smartest person in the room. You got to be in the room with people who are smarter than you.
Facts.
Sometimes you got to listen more than you got to talk.
Yeah.
Like sometimes you got to be around people who know better stuff, or who have more experience, so that you can learn, that you can grow, and that you can be moved out of your comfort zone. But yeah, guys, if you're gonna go through like the difficult way and go through the hard way, like there are a couple of good principles that I would like I adopt if I were you, or even just kind of consider. For me, I broke it down as something I understood. So like I identified with the idea of the Spartan. The Spartan to me was kind of like what I wanted to work towards. So I'll just go from the top again. Those principles. Number one, it'll pass. So no matter what you're going through, it only comes in seasons. It'll pass. Number two, there's no surrender or defeat. Doesn't matter what you're going through. You don't quit. You don't give up. You keep moving forward. That's how winning is done. Number three, a Spartan doesn't make an old man choose between his strawberries and his milk. If you can take a hit that somebody else can't take that hit. Just because you have the strength, because you have the responsibility to do it. Not because they deserve it, not because they're entitled to it, but because you have that strength, so use it. That's what it's for. It takes more strength to build somebody up than it does to tear somebody down.
Facts.
Number four is the climb. So starting at the bottom and working your way to the top. The value is in the journey. It's in the growth, not the goals. And then finally, the only thing worth conquering in this world is yourself. So the idea that like you start off with your own personal story, your own personal journey, and that's what you should be doing. Not comparing with everybody else, not focusing
Yeah.
on what they're doing, not focusing on what they look like or their physique or their money or their girl. Doesn't matter. All you have is the opportunity to be better than you were yesterday, and that's all you get. So that's the five Spartan principles that we've adhered to. I'd love to hear you guys' comments. If you guys have other principles that you guys listen to, or other kind of ways and systems, I'd love to know about those as
Yeah, that'd
well.
be interesting.
Yeah,
Yeah.
because I'm
See how
like
other
we all
people
have our own
like.
way of getting through
Yeah.
life. So if there are like cool ones you guys have, please drop them in the comments, and I'd
Please
love
do.
to go through some of those. And if there are some really cool ones, we'll definitely share them in the
Oh,
next
for
episode
sure.
and
Come
like
on.
go through those. But yeah, guys, this has been the Spartan's journey. So thank you very much for listening, and we'll see you guys next week.
Peace.